Morning, everybody. I am not in Houston traffic today. Decided to take a vacation day, which is abnormal for me, so that I can celebrate Passover. A lot of people look at Passover as something that may be slow or boring or whatever, but we're not going to celebrate Passover in a slow and boring way. We're going to celebrate Passover in an exciting way. Why do I say that? Well, Passover is all about bringing the Jews out of their slavery. But it's not just the Jews. It's actually bringing you out of your slavery as well. I think that's one of the things that we miss as Christians is, what does the Passover story have to do with us as Christians? Before you had Christ in your life, you were a slave. You were a slave to sin. You were a slave to self. You were a slave to the world. You didn't know it. You weren't aware of it. At least the Jews, they kind of understood it. But now that you've separated from that and you have Christ in your life, you can look back and see where you were a slave to your sin, where you were a slave to the enemy. And you can tell where your freedom has come from. You're now free from the enemy's grip on you. You're free from the slavery and the bondage that you were under before. And if you're not free and you don't feel that freedom, then it's hard to understand how you would celebrate that freedom. See, the early Jews, they understood how to celebrate this freedom is because they experienced slavery. They saw and felt their slavery. I don't think Christians today understand the freedom that they have in Christ. And I don't think that we fully understand the slavery that we were in. But once you understand the level of servitude that you were at before Christ, you can start to see why we would celebrate being free. The fact that Jesus bled on a cross and died for us to be free of those burdens and free of those chains and bondage to slavery. I think if we don't recognize this freedom, we can't possibly celebrate this freedom in a way that makes sense. And that's what Passover's all about. It's giving thanks to God, praising God, and spending time with Him. You know, we do all these holidays, but when do we really spend time with Him? And I don't mean going to sit in a pew. I don't mean listening to some guy talk about what Easter means. I don't mean about, kind of hanging out at the church a little longer than normal. I'm talking about spending time with the Father, celebrating your freedom and thanking Him and giving Him praise for the fact that He made a way for us to be with Him. He made a way for us to be clean. He wanted us out of bondage. He wanted us out of slavery. Enough that He would give His Son. Enough so much that He would give Himself. And I think that's something that we need to realize. That's something to celebrate. We should be excited to celebrate the fact that we're no longer in bondage. We're no longer slaves to sin. And we're free. We are free. You're free from those things. You're free of who you used to be. And I think that's part of it, is we need to start thinking about, what were you saved from? When's the last time you went back and thought about who it was that you were before and who you are now, and what God has done and what freedom you have found in your life through Christ? And here's something that might hurt a little bit. If you're not finding that freedom, then it's probably because you haven't submitted to Christ as much as you need to. If you're not noticing a huge difference between your life before Christ and your life now, then there's something wrong, because you should find such an immense amount of freedom. You should find such a great change in your life, a change that's something you want to celebrate, because it's not the old you anymore. It's the new you. It's the new you in Christ. Man, that's cool. So I guess for me, I'm looking back at my desert. I'm looking back at my slavery. And I think that's one of the things that I have to understand is I was an adulterer. I was a selfish, lost, hateful, vindictive, spiteful, lying, terrible person. I cared about no one but myself. And there's things that I look back upon that I can never take back. I could never take those things back. But because of Christ, who loved me, who loves you, He took that from me. He took a lot from me. He took not only those things that I've done, but He took the source of those things out of my life. He took the source and the desire for me to continue down the wrong path and to choose my slavery. He took that desire out of me. So it's not just that He took the sin, but He took a heart of sin. He took a desire for sin. He took my slavery away. I no longer have to look at who I am and hate myself. I no longer have to look at myself and the life that I lead and think, man, I'm completely worthless. My worth is in Christ. My value is in Christ. My freedom is in Christ. My hope is in Christ. My love is in Christ. My all is in Christ. And when something gets out of line, I need to bring that back to Christ. I need to bring that back to the Father. So, for those who would think that it's strange for us to celebrate Passover, for those that think it's odd for Christians to even consider Passover, it's you celebrating your freedom in Christ. Why is that strange? Why is that different? Let's celebrate our freedom in Christ. Let's celebrate the fact that we are no longer slaves. That should be exciting. That's what God's doing with me today. And I pray that sometime today you will reflect upon the slavery that you were in before Christ and see where you are now and recognize your freedom. Love you guys. God bless.